Welcome, welcome. It's that time again. We are in the place, in the place. We are ready to get this thing started. Listen, we have another awesome show for you tonight. And listen, I can't wait to get in, but you know, I got to do my formalities, do some house cleaning. Listen, what's good? What's good, family? Welcome to the greatest podcast on your social media page. It's that time again for the Black and the Bold podcast. Here you will hear some thought provoking and you'll have some gut wrenching stuff sometimes. And even when I'm really feeling myself and I'm really in my bag, I might even make you drop a tear too with just how funny I am. But listen, I enough about me. I'm the Bold. Listen, we're gonna start it off right. What's going on, Brother Black? How you doing this evening?
Hey, good evening, bro. Root to the bros, man. It's always good to be around the bros. So, hey, it's Dwayne Johnson, otherwise known as the Black, on this show, and obviously, you heard how we do. We get a little nutty, we get a little serious, and we get obviously funny. And so, we got something good for you tonight. Good scramble of conversation here tonight based on the topics that were submitted by a lot of our friends throughout the social media community with regards to where Black America is today and where we're going. We're going to get a little bit into emotional intelligence as well, start talking about that and basically understand if we're in a dire need of a mindset shift, if we're, where we are supposed to be in this journey of Black America. So again, my name is Dwayne Johnson, hailing from Lowndes County, Georgia, by way of also Georgia Tech, Go Jackets, all day, all night long. And so also by way of Washington, D.C. area, the DMV, where I spent some time doing engineering management, met my beautiful, lovely wife and had our first two kids there. Then, of course, journeyed down to back home, Valdosta, Georgia, where we actually operate our property management business here, bridgebuilderinvestments.com, where you can find us. We had our final, and I say final to a lot of people, final child, not wishing anymore. And so we have total three outstanding kids from the ages down from kindergarten all the way up to, entry level of high school. So we're very proud of them and very engaged parents, as we talk about here. So anything that we talk about on this show is because we live it and we breathe it, we execute it, And so when Brother Bold and I are talking about things, we're not just talking about theory, we're talking about practice. So, bro,
Fact.
I'm gonna hand it right over to you on that segue.
Absolutely. Hey, man, listen. That's the black. I'm the bold. Hometown flavor. You already know what it is. UCF grad. Out here in the world trying to get this grind. Listen, I'm trying to get on Brother Black's level. Every day I'm trying to move there where you can have this financial freedom because it's attractive like a mug. But, yeah, man, Lane, just trying to get this thing moving, just trying to get this thing rolling. Proud of my oldest. He's about to be officially, well, I guess you could call officially a young man now. Got baby girl. She just getting started, about to get her feet wet. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited about what's happening. Excited about what's about to come, and excited about the show because I think this is something that we can get some good engagement with. We can leave the ladies alone for a little bit. They be crying and whining about the stuff that we talk about sometimes. We're too hard on it, all this kind of stuff. The fluff. So yeah, we're gonna give it a break tonight, and we're gonna talk about something that hopefully all of us can relate. So shouts out to everybody that's on. Shouts out to those that are on YouTube and those that are on Facebook. Matter of fact, if you're on right now, go ahead and like and share and subscribe. Send text messages out, throw the bat signal up in the air, let them know we're on, and we're getting ready to get down this great conversation. What does the viewership look like so far, brother?
Man, we just starting out, man. We just starting out. We got to wake everybody up, So
All
we
right.
got a few that are logging in right now. See the numbers starting to increase, but everybody's real quiet right now. You know how they enter the room, try to peep in to see who's in the room, dip out, get a piece of a cake or whatnot, and get that piece of chicken, and then ride back in to see who else in. So if you're already in the room, as Brother Bull said, don't be shy. Go ahead and give us a like, share, let everybody know in your community that the Black and the Bold has begun, and also let us know that you have entered the room. So go ahead and just lay a chat down and say, hey, how y'all doing? You in here. We're from Valdosta. Let us know where you're from. Let us know what's going on. Don't be shy.
Definitely need y'all to represent for sure. Definitely need that. That's gonna be huge to the process. I just went in and reshared it again, so
Yep.
hopefully we can have some other people catch it while we're getting
Yeah.
ready to get
Hey,
things. Brother Lucas, I see him. I see what's happening. What's happening?
okay. That's what I'm talking about. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Yes,
Yeah, we
sir.
gotta have the men come through, man. We need a brother with some intellect like Brother Lucas, because we got a heavy one tonight, brother. We
Hey,
need your insight. We need your insight. So please stay tuned. Please add your comments, man, because we're gonna need some intelligence in the chat, man. I'm gonna need y'all help tonight. I'm gonna need your help tonight. So I appreciate you logging on, man. Go ahead and share. If you can, if you haven't already, go ahead and share and like. Listen, we got a good one. We're gonna get lined up for you.
hey, bro.
Yeah.
Let me just chop in because I keep forgetting. I meant to tell you before the show on pre-show conversation, but I want to also drop this dime to those that chime in that may hear about this on playback, and let's run it again by the time everybody gets on and the ending of this. But hey, I talked to y'all about the track program at Lions High, right? They just won the state championship, the girls team, and so I was talking to Coach Robinson. Guess who we might have on next week? Coach Robinson, state championship coach for girls track at Lowndes High School. I'm talking about
Yes,
history
sir.
being made on multiple levels at the track team on Lowndes High School. So
Shouts out.
I'm definitely excited, as you can see, that we might not even might. He said he definitely would do it next week, but definitely want to follow through to make sure that happens. So next weekend, guys, definitely tune in 8:30. We're gonna have Coach Joseph Robinson, government name there. Coach Robinson.
Government.
Yes. Gonna have Coach Robinson on next week. But tonight we got to get down serious. So go ahead, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Listen, I'm actually pretty excited about that because my goddad pretty much laid such a foundation. You know what I'm saying, for him to come behind him.
Oh yeah.
And to still be a young black man making great strides across the state is huge for me.
Man.
You know what I'm saying? Because it really just kind of solidifies his legacy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm proud about it, man. Another black man came in and took that information, took the lessons that Coach Jay learned and passed down, for him to keep it going. So I'm excited. I know what it did for me. So I know what him being, the head of the girls track for all those years did for me and for you and I. Kept us busy. It kept us focused. You know what I'm saying? It kept us learning. About our talent and our skills. So shout out, bro. Yeah, I'm happy about next week.
We're gonna have a major one next week, bro. And hey, if you miss it,
bro, I might wear my old Lounge. I got an old Lounge track jersey.
You have the singlet. Oh my goodness! Hey, don't be stretching the singlet now.
And you know what I'm saying? I have my taco meat out there, everything, bro. I'll be sitting here with it.
Ain't nothing changed with you on that now.
Looking like a medium, bro. I got that taco meat. I always had that taco meat, bro. You know how that is. You know what I mean? Bro, I'm definitely gonna wear that. It's gray and it's got lines across it. It's like jersey type, bro. It's old. So I gotta find it. So hopefully I can find it.
All right.
But yeah, man, listen, we got a lot with this week. We want to send a shout out to Beautiful. Got some things lined up, so she may be able to log on with us in a little bit. So shouts out to the beautiful girls, all the ladies. We did not kick Beautiful off the show. She's getting some other things done. So we're just gonna keep it rolling. If she get a chance, then she'll tap in with us tonight. So, but yeah, we're gonna jump right into some of our talking points tonight. We got a good show tonight, and I think this is going to be one that's probably going to be for the books. When you think about everything that's involved in this conversation, I think it's going to be a good one because, the first question is, do we lack self-awareness? Now, I think this is something that we have been talking about, kind of dibbling and dabbling in it. I think a lot of the times we haven't been able to really talk about it because sometimes people get sensitive and want to throw off and want to find other scapegoats. But I want to ask the people today that's with us on the show: Do we lack self-awareness? I mean, what's your, because this is going to tie into the next question, but I just want to find out: do we lack it? What do you think, brother?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm sorry, just pulling up the screenshot there. Where we're coming from with this show, as y'all saw through the moniker you clicked. But we're getting into this thing about Black America needing a reality check, and so that's a leading question there because just as Bold explained, with self-awareness, man, I'm gonna go and obviously say yeah because that's where we're leading this to, but that's a result of our Black history in America, right? And so being the age-old narrative, we hate to pounce on that all the time, but it is what it is. We have to understand the effects that slavery has had on Black America, or Blacks in America at first, Africans in America, before we are now termed as African Americans, as if it's all assimilated and it's all inclusive. And so as Africans in America, we were forced to assimilate. We were forced to lose our identity. We were forced to strip ourselves of our identity, which, as you can imagine, after that's been beat out of you over said set of time, we really had lost who we were. And that's just from Africa. You're talking about generations of storytelling and stories that have been told down from lineage to lineage, tribe to tribe, and then mixed and dispersed and sent off, and mother went this way, child went that way, father went another, or father was stripped and beaten and torn apart literally in front of families. I mean, so much trauma we had to deal with. And that's the area where, if you haven't had a chance, as college students to take African American studies or some sort of elective, that's where I think a lot of us could miss out if you haven't now done the studying of that post college. And then it goes back to why this fight for what's termed as critical race theory is important. Again, I've said before, I'm not really a fan of how they termed it critical race theory. It is what it is. It's history, American history. Every culture has an opportunity. I think at this point, it seems like every month has been designated for some culture. I think last month it was Asian Pacific Islander,
Yeah.
celebration month. So
Mhm.
every culture pretty much has that designation. Of course, we have Black History Month. Shout out to Carter G. Woodson for that. And so in February, shortest month of the year, but it is what it is by design. But nonetheless, by design, also we get a limited amount of people that we can cover in that month. And even with that, I turned the page of how confident we may be or may not be with actually celebrating those that haven't passed the gatekeeper test. Right, Martin Luther King Jr. It's fair and it's fun and it's normalized to celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. However, it's not so publicized what he actually studied and pronounced towards the latter part of his lifetime. As he got down into talking about beyond having a dream that turned into a nightmare through the simulation process of integration. We talked about that several weeks ago. The other thing, as far as being confident and sharing about our own culture and Black people, the ones that aren't so popular, Malcolm X, Nat Turner, those type people where they pushed the envelope and said, we are going to take our freedom by any means necessary. And that means that some of y'all are in our way and your life has to be challenged, then we're going to challenge that in order to take hold of our freedom. Um, Nina Simone even spoke about that. I just saw my daughter, proud of her as far as everything on track, but also in the classroom. She actually is taking her summer to look at some of the YouTube videos of the Summer of Soul, which is a music festival, but one in that time frame. Sounds like you're familiar with it as well, Bo. And Nina Simone kicks off some of that, talking about are you ready to die for the cause? Are you ready to kill for the cause? I mean, things that may not be accepted when
Right.
she's saying that, or not even today. But you have to understand that we're in a country where it's celebrated to die for your cause in the lane that is acceptably heard. If you're dying for the liberties of America, then it's okay.
Yeah.
But the liberties of Black America, it's a little odd to have that conversation. So as we progress, even with Juneteenth this season here, hashtag Black Tuesday. Shout out to the Southside Boosters, Adrian Rivers, Tony Tong, D Dunbar, that are on Facebook pushing that agenda with regards to celebrating this week with the festivities and today being Black Tuesday. Hashtag support Black businesses. But nonetheless, Juneteenth, that's an area we're getting more comfortable with. And I hate to say it in a sense that are we more comfortable because now the government has made it a holiday, or are we actually more comfortable because we are pushing the agenda more and by any means necessary? And I want to say the latter because we have been talking Juneteenth for some years now, before it's now being commercialized. But nonetheless, that's in a large nutshell. I think where you can start on any of those legs to where our self-awareness has been a challenge from the beginning, and it has always been a challenge because of the status quo, especially in a region like South Georgia or the southern states, to where the Confederacy hold that lost cause agenda has always kind of kept us quiet. So yeah, short answer now, yes, our self identity is a challenge.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I know that there's a lot of different legs to the conversation, that you just put out. And all of those are definitely true when we talk about self awareness. And I know a lot of that comes from our culture, comes from our upbringing, it comes from our environment, it comes from the amount of knowledge that we've attained through the time to the period of being able to really be conscious and think for yourself and all of that. All that has been definitely tampered with. As you talked about, a lot of the COINTELPROs and a lot of the Martin Luther King situations, the Malcolm X's, the Black Power movement, how all those things kind of really shaped a lot of our um, cultural norms. We have kind of metamorphosized into something very different than we were, 2 generations ago. And so we definitely are. We definitely have a self awareness situation, and I think some of the causes or some of the roots of that could be found in its definition. If we would read the definition, it says self awareness is conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. I think the operative word in that whole definition is conscious. I think our conscience has definitely been under a microscope for the last 3 to 4, maybe even 500 years. I mean, we were studied before we were conquered. Ultimately, when the world was turned over to them, and so our conscience is what's really been under attack. And I think the fact that we've been stuck in arrested development for 2 generations, that has also affected our self awareness because we have almost lost an identity to be aware about. Our families have shifted, our family models have shifted, relationship traditional roles have shifted, the workplace has shifted. If you look at when you and I grew up, the barbershop was a safe haven for a lot of men. Now that's not even a place where men can go vent. So a lot of the things that we do and we understand about our character and our feelings and our motives have been under attack for a reason. And so I think that not only is our self awareness, been a weapon used against us, but I think also the fact that the weapon has worked. It has consistently kept us unconsciously knowledgeable about our own character. Um, I think for the most part, a lot of us have disconnected from those that taught us character. You got to think about some of the things that kind of pushed character in our community for years. A lot of it was religion. Um, I think the last 30 to 40 years, religion has been under attack, and I think it's been under attack because we've looked at it out of the wrong lens, and we've looked at the people who were carrying that religion to have to be perfect. And because of that, I think a lot of the lines on morality and character and virtues, I think a lot of that got muddied along the way, not understanding that it was supposed to be a goal that was something you should be working towards, not necessarily you'll be walking in that perfection. I think a lot of that is what drove our character. It speaks to how our men were men, how women were women, how our societies worked, how government worked. A lot of that was really founded in our character, but was really rooted in what we believed in. It was a lot of our spiritual beliefs. I think now, um, because whatever religion we had before we were conquered, that was stolen, and then we were given an awareness or character or motive, then to find out that that was also filled with impurities. And so now we've been set under another reset. If you think about it right now, look at the consciousness of Black America. It's shifting. It's taken a huge shift into a new direction of what it means to be Black. And so now we're kind of resurrecting the argument about Black or African American or Moors or whatever it may be. And so I think that we are struggling with having a conscious knowledge of who we are, because a lot of the times we can't even figure out. We can have a conversation with someone and then they'll want to fuss us down, not for the context, but just the fact that I call them Black instead of indigenous. If I call them African American or something like that, now we got to have this meaningless conversation and not really getting down to the real meaning of how can we establish a unanimous character. And I think that's something that's really suffered. Look at our boys. Look at the men who raised us. Look at the men who are now 40 and 30, 40 and 50. Very different than the men that we saw. The standards are very different. The lifestyles are very different. And so I really think that we do lack a self-awareness. Look at our relationships. Look at our families. Look at our households. Look at the amount of us who die, with something to pass down. My grandfather had a fourth grade education, but he was able to pass down property and farms and homes and etc. So I think we are lacking in our self awareness. But I have to ask the question: what do you think has been the greatest threat to our self awareness? In the last 20 to 40 years, pretty much, the amount of time we've been alive in our generation. What do you think has been the greatest threat to our to the black man's self-awareness or just black people's self-awareness altogether?
Sorry about that, bro. Just typing in that question to the family. And so, if you all don't mind, as you all are on, we do have an outgrowing audience out there. The question on the table is, what has been the greatest threat to our self-awareness in Black America? Just as Bold laid out there. I throw out, a couple. I mean, one, let's point at ourselves for one. Are we really thriving for education like we should across the board? I know our audience, it's almost like preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
So, our guys get it. Sam Lucas is on. He's already chimed in. And by the way, let us know you're out there. Let us know how you're doing. Give us a wave. Give us an emoticon, something. And just know that you're engaged in the conversation, because I see the numbers. But, engage with us. That's how this thing goes. It's how it gets interesting. And you add your flavor to some of these questions, because it's just me right now, Black and Bold, talking about, our thoughts. But, as far as self-awareness, see ya, Cedric, Wall Street, Montgomery, standing chomping. All right, what's up, what's happening, fellas? So, as far as self-awareness, where does that come from? What's the greatest threat, to our self-awareness? A part of that is our dying love for education, because of the redirection that has happened. And like you said, that inner consciousness has sort of watered itself down over time. When you look at the generations that have passed and those that are amongst us, and then that transition of our youth at this point, we've got to regain our thrive and our energy, our eagerness towards education. When you look at the days of Dr. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and all those others, Katherine Johnson, when it comes to the mathematics, the politics, the civil rights. Those guys were not successful in doing what they accomplished just by listening to the radio, just by listening to what was the happening top 20 in America. So I see you, Calvin Berrien. Nice to have you on as well. That's a legacy right there. Berrien and Montgomery's in the house. But yes, nonetheless, that lack of education, and I'm not talking schooling education, but I'm talking about at home. The legacy of your family, the legacy of the Lucases, the Berriens, the Montgomerys, learning about your not only culture, because that comes with learning your family history, but as well as beyond the classroom. Bo just talked about his grandfather having just a formal fourth grade education. That reminded me, my dad always talks about, my granddad, his dad had just a third grade education. And similar to what Bo said, our granddad, if you will, and on my end, we celebrate by taking care of the farm estate up there. And that's something that he passed down to the generation of my dad. This is with third and fourth grade education, guys. We have 12th grade education graduates. We have college graduates. What is the problem? We have technical institute graduates with associates, bachelors, masters, and we're falling behind the cultural awareness that our forefathers had just a generation or two ago at most. So what seems to be the problem? And so, I'm interested in hearing what our family out there in the Black and the Bold community have to say about that. One of the things I throw out there, as I just stated, is the lack of the yearning to complete education and kind of have that blindfolders effect, that no matter what music is playing, let's segregate that from our household right now, because that's a distraction. All right, no matter what's on TV, let's segregate that. Let's separate that out of our household. That's not part of our practices because it's a distractor. As far as some of the initiatives that are going on, there are so many initiatives that are out there. We're right upon Pride Month. Some of that to us is a distractor. It is what it is. Just like when you look at our counterparts, the European American community, white folks, in other words, do you really think a lot of them? Excuse me, I'm not going to try to say a lot of them, etc. But when it comes to the history of European America, white folks, our counterparts, a lot of the legacy that they have and a lot of the strength that they have in America is not because they dibbled and dabbled in Native American affairs. They dibbled and dabbled in Black American affairs, African American affairs. It's because they had blinders on and they did what was best for their communities, their people, and no matter what it took to actually conquer, learn about, as Bo talked about earlier. And so we have to have that similar mindset to where we have to think Black. You know, we can obviously celebrate everybody else to the degrees that are necessary and that you prefer, but at the end of the day, I grew up in a way to where, you know, I was around obviously a lot of African American Black folks, whether it was through sports or family or whatever, and it was celebrated. Yeah. All right, I watched shows, Different World, Cosby Show. It wasn't even about this whole cancel culture thing. You know what I'm saying? So that's the type of thing that I'm pressing upon our kids, is that if you're going to take some time to delve into entertainment, watch something that reflects you. And sometimes we have to find shows that are of the past, of the 90s, the early 2000s, one-on-one. Remember that, Sister to Sister? Yeah, something that reflects us, because the TV and the entertainment that's out there now is really structured in a way that it puts us in the background, or the comic relief, or just one of the many that don't look like us. But I see we got comments going on, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Bo. Go ahead.
Bro, you made a great point right there. It made me think about, I was looking at this, actually I got it pulled up now. It's a guy by the name of Ramachandran. He actually wrote, a peer review about, he called it the Edge Foundation. He's really talking about questions about how the brain allows us to be self-aware and how we're biologically programmed to be self-aware versus, there being something happening in the brain that kind of mirrors, having a neurological response to just being human.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of, it's almost like a chicken or the egg question. But I wanted to share this with you. He said that he speculated that there are certain neurons that can not only help simulate other people's behavior, but can be turned inward. He said there are two types of self-awareness: there's internal and external. Mm-hmm. And he's saying that sometimes your brain can be triggered in such a way that it will cause neurons to go off and make you want to simulate that behavior. You can turn that behavior inward, as it were, basically to create a second order representation or a meta representation of your own earlier brain processes. So basically what happens is you are affected by the stimuli that you experience, and you make a conscious decision on the inside to rather replicate that behavior, or just to say you understand it, but I'm not going to do it. This really speaks to what you were saying, is that if you constantly put something in front of me and give me a stimuli that puts me second class, that puts me as the joker, puts me as the jester, puts me as the gang, puts me as this consistently, what you're doing is now you're activating that internal self-awareness. Now you're trying to affect how I'm going to teach myself how to act. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I'll take that as what makes people laugh. Is that what makes people, makes people money or whatever? Now I make that my reality when it's really not. The same thing that happened with what was the guy that was on Good Times, James?
Yeah, James was the father.
And he had a problem with the role and everything he was trying to give him with the role, right, because he had internal self-awareness and external self-awareness. He's like, nah, that's gonna make me look crazy. And so they ended up getting rid of him, and the show owner told him that he would never work again. And that same year, I think, or somewhere soon after, he got called to play in Roots. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes we're going to have to come to those crossroads to find a way we can marry our internal and external self-awareness to know that sometimes we've been programmed to do some of the things that we do, and it makes us look like, it gives us a certain look in society. We're going to have to learn, how to, unlearn and relearn or whatever, so that we don't allow these images, like you were saying, in the music and all that, to create our reality for us. But that comes from having a lack of self-awareness, lack of being taught, lack of family history, lack of family reunions, lack of biological, all that stuff that we keep saying is, we keep calling the devil and evil and all that stuff, is actually our history and where we come from. And I think we're going to have to, at some point, entertain it, or at least being able to understand who we are, what we came from. We weren't all Christians. We all know this. We all know this religion thing. What hasn't been here since the beginning of time? What were we before then? We all know that we all didn't come from Africa. So what Indian tribe were we? We've got to get to that self-awareness to know who we were, so that we don't repeat those same mistakes, and fall so far from grace like we have since our forefathers come. But yeah, man, let's hit these questions, man. I had to get that.
Oh, no problem, man. It's all good conversation. And then just before we move forward, I mean, it's a flurry of questions, not questions, but comments that came through that were right on point. I'm gonna start with Cedric Montgomery here. He said about, probably about 5 minutes ago or more, that we have to get the family unit back together. We have to stop letting the government trick us into thinking it is better for you to basically your mom to raise your kids without their fathers. So that's a money driver, right? All right, Cedric. So again, he grew up with wanting to be like his dad, his uncles, his granddad. Now his daughters are growing up. They want a husband that's like him, their daddy, which is appropriate, right? Because my wife and I, we have this conversation from time to time. You really are amazed at how you end up with the person that is similar to your family structure in some ways. That's how we landed. Others may, you land upon somebody that was different and you're successful. There's nothing wrong with that. But, there is some similarity to what Cedric is talking about that I can align with. You see what you see in your household, and those are sort of the things that you really yearn for when you grow up and you look for a mate to settle down with. Just like when my wife is talking to me, she's talking about some of the structure that I exude, some of the self-discipline, the disciplined nature of how I aim to lead the household and aim to raise our kids. Those are the same things that I grew up with. Those are the same things that she grew up with in her household. So it matters, as Black fathers, for us to be present, not only present, but intentional about how we raise our kids, our children, for that matter, and how we actually progress our generation of fathers and fatherhood away from the style of fatherhood that we experienced. Again, eat the meat, throw away the bone. There were a lot of bones that we actually experienced. Obviously I can speak for myself, but I think it's very safe to say that Black fatherhood has to evolve in some ways, because what we actually were under for a long time was a parenting style that was very corporal. And from a discipline standpoint, there's nothing wrong with having discipline. But the corporal punishment piece of that's where we need to evolve and find other strategies. And so that's what I mean when I say that fatherhood has to evolve in some ways, and being a father. But that's again, I digress on really where we are. Samuel Lucas says, it's my opinion that we have become too emotional driven and rightful due to the traumas basically that have been inflicted through the history of Black America. We don't use our emotions to drive our consciousness, which drives our will. Which would propel us out of our circumstances. Absolutely. Right. We're talking about facts right there. Intentionality in using our circumstances, our placement in life, what we are up against, what we are juxtaposed with, and using that as a driver to grow and move forward. That's really why we end up becoming, if we don't do that, that's why we end up becoming dependent upon other leaders, like Samuel Lucas talks about as far as politicians. That's why they always appeal to our emotions. We are an emotional tribe in some sense. You can see that in the church. We are driven by the drum. We are driven by the spirit of one another, the connection. That's our strength, actually. But people use that to our disadvantage. But we have to also use our strength of intelligence as well and hone in with those emotional drivers to build leaders within our own households.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Amazing insight, brother Sam. I told you we needed some of y'all intelligent brothers in the chat, that can help expand this conversation. Because you're right. I mean, if I go back to the definition, because I got to stick true to that. If
Mhm.
I go back to the definition, it's really going to basically solidify what Sam just said. To go back to that definition to let you know it's you being consciously having the conscious knowledge of your feelings, what drives you, your desires, your emotions. Um, your brother Sam, again, you preaching. Our emotions, especially as men, are out of whack because of the trauma we've experienced, because of the households we lived in, because we had the lack of male figures in the home, quality male figures in the home for many of our children. Our sense of self awareness was I don't want to use that word, but we were put under shock when it was taken away from us. It was traumatic, and I think because of that, we are, especially our men, are extremely emotionally driven, extremely, and that comes from us not being self-aware of who we are as men. Our women suffering the same thing because they don't know who they are as women. We are definitely suffering, and some of these things that we a lot of times we like to bring out as triggers aren't really triggers. I think when we see certain things in the community that cause us to blow up, I think a lot of times we blow up prematurely because of the lack of self-awareness. I think a lot of times we get triggered by certain things that we shouldn't get triggered by, but because we're still emotional, because we still don't know enough about our history, because we don't know enough about our enemy. A lot of times we just take stuff on, we just ride with it and run with it. But we're suffering without self-awareness. I think we're suffering in the workplace with the fact that I think it's hard for people of color to even assimilate in the workplace a lot of times. Sometimes it feels like we have to completely become a whole new person. You ever had that conversation with people who are trying to climb that corporate ladder? Sometimes they feel like they got to just completely be somebody totally different instead of really solidifying who they are. We can go on and on with it, but the brother made an amazing statement, so I'm gonna let him get all the glory behind that. That was an amazing statement.
So really, then, if you went into that emotional piece, and that was obviously by way of brother Lucas's comment with the emotional intelligence piece, being aware. So as we make that transition to emotional intelligence, we talked a little bit about before the show started about this emotional intelligence chart, and I'm going to bring it up shortly so that you can navigate that with us, brother Bold. But really, the question at hand then becomes: have we lost our sense of emotional intelligence? But before we get into that, we really have to understand what is emotional intelligence, right? And
Right.
so, as we discuss that, I'm bringing this up on the screen, and once we understand what it is, we understand have to understand how do we develop it. And emotional intelligence is one of those things that if you haven't really studied it, then it's a new concept that it might be, riding a bike for the first time, because it takes practice. It takes engagement that challenges your sense of awareness of your emotion, basically being intelligent with your emotions and being aware. It's beyond just saying, oh, I know I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm frustrated. It's taking it to the next step. And typically, I'll say from my experience, as far as emotional intelligence, the concept, it is learned by those that travel the ranks of managers. I know Brother Bold has been that track, and I've been that track as well. And that's actually where I learned the term of emotional intelligence, how
Yep.
to deal with employees and servicing employees through emotional intelligence, awareness of yourself and awareness of what's going on with someone else as you before and as you engage with them. So, Brother Bold, I'll transition to you at this point to kind of cover some of this chart, and let's have a discussion about that. But audience here, definitely take a look at what we're talking about, because this is an important piece.
Yeah, it's definitely important, and I think it's important because a lot of us don't really spend a lot of time, building up our personal character, building up our personal life. A lot of people don't talk about ego and and all those other intangibles a lot of times that really affect how we interact or how we move about. So, I mean, yeah, with the emotional intelligence, it's definitely that EQ, having that ability to understand, to be able to use and manage your own emotions. I think as we kind of segue from self-awareness into emotional intelligence, they kind of are they do suffer from a perpendicular type of context, but at the same time they're a little bit different. Having that ability to understand, having that conscious knowledge, knowing how to manage your own emotions. I think Black America has been exploited, and this is just honest truth. I think our lack of emotional intelligence has been exploited to frame a narrative around all Black people. That's just my opinion, and that can be true when you look at how uh, a lot of the other races kind of indirectly act when they're around us. The clutching of the purse comments and walking on the other side of the street, and and watching us on camera and following us around the store. I think the fact that we haven't been able to manage our emotions, we have created moments that have put us in a negative light internationally and nationally. Not saying that our reactions were different than anybody else's of another hue, the very fact that we were exploited with ours, because like brother Sam said earlier, we do have a trauma. We do suffer from a genetic PTSD that is generational. A lot of us are experiencing. Some of us don't even know why we don't like to swim. We're scared of water. We don't even know. But that psychology has proven that could be something that is in your DNA, that you've kind of awakened that certain strand of DNA, and now you don't know why, but it happened. But I think the fact that we've been exploited has put us in such a negative light that it has allowed us to almost take it on as a badge of honor when we act out in public, or when we do a certain thing that's a quote unquote Black behavior. I think a lot of times, because we have been exploited, it has become an accepted behavior. And because we haven't been able to really consciously know what we're doing, consciously aware of that internal, external self awareness, not knowing how to manage our emotions, not knowing how to deal with difficult people, being raised in a house that was warlike, and it was more of a dictatorial type of relationship. There was no there was no child parent relationship outside of taking directions and redirection, whippings or whatever. All of that has been an ability for us to kind of be exploited. Not only the fact that most Black people don't even know how to relieve stress, and so that has been exploited because there's a liquor store on every corner. What's the three things that we can guarantee is going to be in our community? Churches, liquor stores, and fast foods. Those are three things that's going to be there. And so
Guaranteed.
if we take out fast food, we can say some type of illegal narcotic, distribution. It's going to be in that area because, again, our inability to really attack our emotional intelligence has been under attack, and so we don't know how to manage our emotions. So we'll get on YouTube or we'll get on Instagram and show our natural behind, or we relieve stress. We do it through a lot of the drinking, the smoking, the sex, the whatever. We can't communicate effectively. A lot of us, even when it comes to our ability to talk, to have a conversation. Have you had a conversation with some of these young people lately? It's very
No,
different. It's extremely
no.
different. They talk in an ebonics that is beyond what we knew coming up. I mean, all these code words and all this other stuff. We can't even empathize with people. You have people that are out that do something, or something happens to them, we want to make fun of them. We want to make, like, I don't know if you saw the guy that took his wife or girlfriend on a flight, and he told her that he was going to go, you're going to take a first class, and he didn't go first class. And then while they were getting on the plane, she was just dogging, bro. No empathy whatsoever. Not the fact that you were being taken on the trip, but she was just dogging dude. Just no empathy for nothing. People get hurt, people get shot, people get jumped on. We'll watch it and we're like, oh, that's a good fight. Our emotional intelligence is just out of whack to the point we don't know how to overcome challenges or diffuse a conflict. It's out of whack. And so when we look at it, we need a whole lot of work, bro. We got a whole lot of work to do in our community just with emotional intelligence. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we suffer the way we suffer, because we are not trying to find ways to correct our bad behavior and set forth a new example for generations to come. But that's my spiel, bro. I don't know. We got anything in the comments?
No, nothing new. Let's move forward definitely with the conversation because you're right. It is out of whack. In those cases, social media has really done its justice on Black America, particularly because
Yeah.
we are a culture of entertainment. We are a culture of being very creative, and with that, I think we are falling susceptible to the drivers or gatekeepers or influencers that open the doors for calling what success or headliners are. So some people get notoriety because they do the most foolish things. Some people get the green light because they make fun of Black America or highlight some of the things that we should not be very proud of. I always think about that restaurant owner that you have brought up a number of times that had to, really go in on the ladies that were twerking in the restaurant, and the fact that he had to and we had to defend his reaction, his response to that. That should not be a conversation that we even had to have as far as a debate in this time. And so we are very accepting with too many perspectives. I think we are, just like you say, and that's because of a lack of self-awareness. We need to be very restrictive in what we're able to accept or willing to accept as far as entertainment. We need to be very strict with what we are accepting our women to do, our men to do, and a lot of the things that we are accepting into our household. One of the things I'm thinking about is what Brother Cedric Montgomery was talking about as far as tricking us thinking into, this is the government tricking us thinking that it's better for the moms out there to raise kids without their father because it's a cash cow. That's that mindset that is permeated through generations that we really have to detach ourselves from.
Yeah, yeah. You're right about that. We definitely have a lot of work to do. When it comes to rebuilding, well, kind of gauging where it is, to figure out where we are, and then set some kind of track moving forward of how we're going to make these repairs. Listen, there are four attributes of emotional intelligence that I want us to really jump into really quickly for us to understand that emotional intelligence is self-management, it's self-awareness, it's social awareness, relationship management. Self-management is social awareness, and then relationship management. Now, if we were and self-management basically is our ability to control our impulses, our feelings, our decision making, our health, being able to take initiative, follow through on our commitments, adapt, being able to adapt very easily to changes and circumstances. Do you think, speaking, for the generality of us, are we suffering from self-management? I think we are. I think we suffer from self-management greatly because a lot of the times we're the ones that, now again, I'm not saying our behavior is not with our counterparts, just focusing on us. I think a lot of times we are very impulsive when it comes to our feelings and our behaviors. But I can't leave it out there by itself without also addressing the trauma that comes along with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that because the thing about it is that when you talk about whether it's our emotions or our behaviors, it leads into our finances, right? That impulsive nature. Again, a lot of that comes through the past generations. It comes through someone making it out of poverty or living through poverty and deciding I want to do better than my previous generation or my forefathers. So I want to be able to provide X amount of success or materials that I didn't have growing up. And that is a problem because it's retroactive to what you've already been through, and it doesn't serve the purpose of actually providing a better lifestyle, because you're always psychologically dependent upon the next materialistic thing.
Yeah.
In order to feel like you're accomplishing something that the previous generation didn't. But it's a cycle of a new poverty. It's a cycle of being dependent upon the next check, which really, when you look at the net value, it's a sum zero. Because in order to get what you need to make a certain amount, which you spend by the next month, and you're back in the same rut, and you never make it out for financial freedom. So we're under this new poverty because of a lack of self-awareness and discipline.
Now and again, that was actually a good leg to talk about, because our finances is, you know, our financial health is, in fact, the summation of our ability to self-manage. You know, if we're able to, like you said, budget, we're able to, you know, have goals financially where we can eventually get out of the sum zero and begin to get in the black when it comes to all the things that we're doing and where we're going. I think that our ability to self-manage is underrepresented, but I think it's also under attack. And the reason I say that is because we're also given so many other solutions that are like microwave when it comes to us fixing things. So we get used to not having to work our way out of anything. You know what I'm saying? And so we start looking for, you know, these audibles and these trap doors in certain situations that can immediately help us manage the stress that we're in. When in fact, when you really learn how to self-manage, you learn how to really take yourself through the process of knowing what it feels like to actually tell yourself no. A lot of people don't know that's actually a skill that has to be learned and has to be cultivated for you to be able to manage your impulsivity, to be able to have the money, have the toy in front of you, but still say, I don't need it. You know, I think that's if you think about, you know, when we get money, we have this stigma that when we get money, you know, first thing we do is what? Buy something tangible, buy something material. You know, we gotta make sure we're dressing up the par. We gotta have on the latest, you know, designer. We gotta be driving the latest foreign. We gotta live in the most expensive neighborhood in the city you live in. But at the same time, I think it's a cover up. You know what I mean? And it also eventually exploits us, because we don't, you know, those impulsive decisions eventually going to catch up. And so I think a lot of times, you know, when it comes to self-management, we got to do a better job. We got to stop trying. And I know it was big back in the early 1900s when there were a lot of us that were coming out of slavery, and being able to buy things and start businesses. They made it their business to wear the same clothes that their masters wore, because they wanted to show that they were capable. I get that. But when you start to absolutely manage and model your life after somebody else's life, because you're trying to be a part of that Joneses group, I think that's where we miss it a lot. And I think we need to get back to being able to control ourselves, being more disciplined, being, you know, more purposeful and on point about what it is that we're trying to get done, so we can manage our emotions, not be emotional men like Sam talked about. You know, being able to have healthy conversations, being understanding that you don't have to fuss at your children when you're redirecting them, understand you don't have to whip them, you know, when you're redirecting them. There are other ways. That's something I had to do. I had to start realizing, and shout out to Brother Black. He shared a lot of information, a lot of literature on what things I could do, you know, being a more conscious parent. I think it was called conscious parenting or something like that.
You're right.
And, the conscious parent or something like that. But just having that information available to know that I don't have to react like it was done to me. I don't have to recreate that same situation for my child when I know it ultimately might not be in the best situation. So let me, you know, take this proactive measure, step in and exercise some self-management to let my children know that, yes, I can be angry, but I don't have to treat you like you're a stranger. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain things about that self-management is important. So, I mean, that's what brought to my mind when you brought it up about the finances, because it made it more personal than the fact that it is really about us, you know, seeking out this therapy. I think there's a lot of us, brother, A lot of us, a lot of us need therapy.
Oh, easily,
A lot
no
of us.
doubt, because it's not something that's normalized in our community, and especially in the South. I mean, I actually was exposed to more in my journeys up north in the DMV area, to where those type of climates were more conducive to having therapy and evaluations for the family, and it was just normal, you
Yeah.
know. So that's what really opened my eyes to the benefit of just making that a first stop. One of the things that actually is more normalized here, which is a first step to a therapy session, if you will, is marriage counseling. So, I mean,
Yeah.
you see that all the time when people come in as a requirement that they put upon people that want to get married as a strong suggestion or recommendation. But that's the first step, and it's nothing wrong with placing an add-on, if you will, since you're in the therapeutic mood of making each other better or understanding each other. Why not get a self-evaluation from a therapist? And then that way you know where each other stands as far as what are your triggers, what does your history have as far as a benefit or dependency or even a disadvantage for your future moving forward, and how do you deal with that? And then again, that ties right back into learning emotional intelligence, how you're
Yeah.
going to self-manage, how you're going to manage conflict when it comes. That's
Yeah.
all a part of that therapeutic journey. And
Yeah.
once you start doing that, it becomes normal. And then you get into the parenting phase. If you have kids or if you plan to have kids, it's always to be proactive, the best way to do it. But then you can start going to, parenting type classes. Shout out to Tiffany Crowell, because with her that birth to or that prenatal to birth journey that her group really advocates for, there is a parenting piece to that they advocate for.
Yeah. You know, as you were talking, I was looking through some of the self management talking points, and one thing that really stuck out to me was the ability to take initiative. I don't think a lot of us realize that when our emotional intelligence was under attack through all of the propaganda, etc. I think we didn't take into account that when they created a narrative of the man and the system, etc., that was actually to attack your ability or desire to take initiative to do anything. Think about prior to the I would say prior to the 60s, we were doing extremely well. Marriage was up 80%. We were 80% married. A lot of us were at home farmers. We were growing our own food for the most part. A lot of us were going out to the colleges. A lot of us were business owners, doctors, lawyers, etc. Because we saw the possibility of what could happen. All we had to do was apply ourselves. That was the whole reason why we were fighting so much for integration, because we wanted the same. We knew we were just as smart or smarter, but our buildings weren't the same. Our books weren't the same, so we could see that there was an obvious disadvantage. We just wanted a fair shot. We didn't want a hand up. We didn't want a hookup. We didn't want none of that. We wanted the fair shot to compete. And when they opened the door for a supposed fair shot to compete, what else did they also allow to be present? The Ku Klux Klan, the secret riders that would come at any point in time to threaten you of what you have, you of what you're not even doing, or the thought that you wanted to do something. You see what I'm saying? So I think we have to also understand that we're going to have to be able to take initiative back and stop asking and begging for a system that was created to keep you bound. I think we're going to have to start looking far beyond this system and taking an initiative in another direction that we can be the owners and operators of what it is that we desire to do. When that self management process. So it's not just controlling your impulsive feelings and behaviors, or managing your emotions, but it's also your ability to stand up and to step out and to start something, to start the business, in spite of what you're hearing, or being able to manage yourself to the point to understand that my business might take a few years to get off the ground, but I'm willing to do the grind. I'm willing to do the grunt work at some point to be able, what I'm saying, to show forth that I'm self-sustained. You know what I mean? So I think that has also been And I know that's something we hadn't brought up, but I just thought about that. Sometimes that consistently painting us in this negative pimp, drug dealer, gangbanger type mentality. It killed the ambition of a lot of actors and actresses for since the 70s. That black exploitation thing was really an outlet for black actors who weren't getting work, in other places, which is why what's his name, Robert, what's his name,
Robert Townsend.
Townsend, when he came out, he did
Yeah.
the Hollywood
Hollywood
Shuffle
Shuffle.
situation. You know what I'm saying? Because he was trying to let them know a lot of these guys, they really were extremely articulate people. Shakespearean and Elizabethan, and they do all of that stuff. They could really go, down to Juilliard and all that stuff. But when it came to them getting a regular role, they were told they had to be a pimp or pusher or dope boy or whatever, to get that opportunity. So that really hurt a lot of our people who had initiative, who had a drive, but could never see the opportunity. So I think that's something we could take from this conversation, that tonight the Black and the Bold is giving you license to activate your initiative again. So you can really create a new projection for your family. So appreciate brother Sam for really kind of broaden the conversation for us to really look at it in many different aspects. So I appreciate that, brother.
Yeah, and just a new shout out, obviously, for Sam as well. I think he's like the VIP for tonight. Definitely for sharing tonight's stream as well with his followers on Facebook. That's what it's about, man. That's how we gain more followers, and that's how you spread the knowledge and the discussion that we're having. Because these discussions, as we already said, from the onset of, well, shoot, when did we start, bro? Doing this, just chatting at night. I mean, we've always done it,
For
but
years.
the camera in front of us. I think we, for the past couple of years now with the Black and the Bold journey, and the whole point was that we have these conversations, and I'm sure other men have these conversations and the families, but it's to a point to where we need to create a space like this to where at least you all can hear that others are thinking the same thing, and that you're not alone in the way that you're thinking. Sometimes it's like a crazy moment. It's like, am I the only one that's seeing this? And so it's good to be able to jump on a chat at 8:30 in the evening on Tuesdays to say, all right, I can follow a couple of individuals, cool dudes, and Sister Beautiful comes on to represent the ladies, and I can have a frank conversation, and it's not being shunned, it's not being judged. And these brothers and this sister, they know what they're talking about. So, thanks for sharing that, Sam.
Absolutely. We definitely want to make sure that you all are definitely a part of the show. We're hoping that very soon that we'll be able to bring on several of you all to help us go through the show. We can ask you the question, make it even more interactive. That's what we're looking to do moving forward. We're just trying to find some people, that are willing to come on every Tuesday night. And not saying you have to be on every Tuesday night. We understand you have a lot of things come up. But just trying to find some more people that are ready to get out there and share your perspective on a podcast where you can have your own opinion. We all can leave the conversation having 4, 5, 6 different opinions about something, but just being able to share it and talk about it is what we desire to do. So just have that on your list and on your mind as well. As we continue to share this great content and have these awesome conversations. But yeah, so we were talking about this the ability to have that self-management. We talked about the self-awareness and knowing how important it is in the process. Being able to really know our emotions. I guess I have to ask you questions. I mean, do Black people have emotions, or are we allowed to have emotions? Because remember, we were told to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps,
right?
And get on with it. So, are we allowed to have emotions?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Not only we were told to tie ourselves up by our bootstraps, but we're also under the title or label of the angry Black man in the room or the angry Black woman, and so that has really doused our willingness or our abilities to be emotional in an intelligent way. It's okay to be emotional to degrees that fit the circumstance. Some cases, just like fight or flight is an emotion. And so when the fight or flight adrenaline does run it within you, it's very good that you're emotional. So, in some cases, it may be a life or death situation when it comes to our culture, that we may need the emotional people, the people who are strong when it matters, the people that are willing to stand up and speak eloquently because the time is right, the time is now. So, as Dr. King spoke and as Malcolm X spoke, they spoke in a very emotional way, but it was through their intelligence that they were able to get across to crowds that were willing to listen to that emotion. We can't be immature in our emotions, and that's what we've been talking about along the way. That Bold has talked about as well, is that we've become so emotional that it shows immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
So, have we lost our sense of being emotional? We've lost our intelligence of being emotional, and we've become more ignorant in the way that we are emotional. I think we need to practice being very intentional and intelligent in the way that we show our emotions. I think that, like, for instance, uh, like our influencers here, as I said before, like the Adrian Rivers, the Doc Kennedy Hill, Demetri Kennedy Hill, Tiffany Crowell, Brittany Bell. The list goes on and on. Tony Tong, Big Nick, Nick Perry over at Top Corral. We need these influencers to step forward just the way that they have been, and for people to follow their footsteps and look at them as mentors, at least from an indirect standpoint. That when, for instance, Tony Tong speaks, notice how he's talking. Notice that it's through intelligence. You can tell the brother has done some research. you know, when we get in front of a crowd or have the platform that Big Nick had when he was running for school board, you have to notice the way that he is well reserved in the moment that he was challenging, the position, the circumstance that he was in. Notice how he dealt with that scenario. It wasn't through an outlash of emotion. And by doing that, he wasn't shunned out of the process completely, meaning that he's not blackballed from ever running again. But
Right.
when we become so emotional that it becomes an outward backlash and sort of a reactive mode versus being proactive with our thoughts, that's when it becomes a problem. That's when you see people getting blackballed and you don't see a recovery from that blacklist, if you will.
Well, I think when you say that, it also brings up the fact that when we show our lack of emotional intelligence, especially our ability to show emotion effectively, it also shows your enemy your inability or your lack of planning ahead or looking forward and understanding that if you're showing you're stressed out and you're overwhelmed and that last move really got to you, if you show your hand, then those that are trying to consistently subject you to something will know it's working. You know what I'm saying? I think that's something that was very effective that Malcolm X used and what they use in Islam, was the fact that although they were experiencing a lot of backlash from cops and from FBI, etc., in some circumstances, they were able to not show their hand, which is what made Malcolm X really effective, especially when they would try to corner him in arguments and debates, and the way he would answer, some of the content that he would use. They would say, "Oh, like his last name or your ex or what's on your birth certificate," and he would he could respond in a way that his response showed that he picked up on the game they were playing, and yet I'm not going to let you get me off my square. At the same
Yeah.
time, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to stand on what I believe in, even if I have to tell you 3 or 4 different ways. I think that's what we have to get back to, not allowing. Because think about it. Think about it. When the Ku Klux Klan and all those other guys were showing up, burning crosses and all that kind of stuff, there had to have been some sort of self management in that very moment to say, you know what? All
Oh
right,
yeah.
I see what you're doing. You
I
know what I'm
mean,
saying?
you look at the biopic of Malcolm X, the boycott series of Dr. King's journey. I mean, the tactics that our counterparts used in that day and age, with regard to like the house bombings, if you will, throwing the bottles or the rock or whatever, basically bottles in to cause a fire. They showed a lot of reservation. during those moments. They showed a lot of reservation. I mean, you think about even, John Lewis, late John Lewis, he and his and Dr. King's journey across the bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of restraint those brothers and sisters had to show in order to put up with what they had put up with or endured, even in the bus journeys, traveling when they would stop and have to deal with a lot. That's that strength of the lion behind you. That's that strength of the lion, knowing when not to pounce, because the end game is what matters.
Yeah. But listen, well, think about this. If we take that into account of all those things that they dealt with at that particular time, what are some of the things that are threats to it now when it comes to our ability to continue? Well, I mean, what are some of the things that we are currently under attack with when it comes to our emotional intelligence? Because there's a lot, that we've been thrown at. That's been thrown to us.
Well, what I see, from, again, this is just the blinders or just only the filters of Lowndes County, South Georgia. When you look at Georgia from Macon down, there is a lot that again, kind of probably getting eventually to the question there is that what are we up against now? The game has changed. And a lot of it is just us. I mean, to a degree, a lot of it is us, brother. I mean, because the way that brothers and sisters move in Atlanta, DC, Jacksonville, perhaps, just guessing, but I know in Atlanta and DC, based on where I've been, brothers and sisters move quite differently, as if they are free. It's like Juneteenth all over again, in the sense that the South or South Georgia doesn't know that we're free.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to just emphasize that first and foremost, that we don't exercise a lot of the rights or entitlements, better said, entitlements that we should be exercising. For instance, a simple one: vote. There is a low percentage of voter turnout in South Georgia, and if I just focus on Valdosta and Lowndes County, all right. If I progress beyond that to being proactive, which is what I like to do, be proactive, is we don't show up really until the battle is pretty much almost lost. The city is in flames, if you will, when it comes to the opportunity that blacks had. For instance, we go to the age-old narrative of the new Valdosta High School being built. Once it was done and over with, contractors, blah, 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 we didn't get a fair shot, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, what are we doing now to prevent that from happening as a proactive measure to get our contractors ready? All right. When it comes to like something with the city of Valdosta, city council, what are we doing to engage the city on an open basis, on a recurring basis? There is a handful of individuals, and you won't need all fingers on the hand, that actually attend city council meetings on a regular basis. And that's where decisions are made. That's where challenges or opportunities to speak in front of the city are made, to where you can get the attention of the city to say, I'm watching what you're doing and I'd like to be involved. How can we be involved? And then once something pans out, it's already done if you're not involved in that process. So we move a little bit differently here in the South compared to our counterparts. The last example I'll use is just that I've always, kind of been throwing this rock at it, is a chamber aspect. All these other cities, Jacksonville, Savannah, Columbus, Macon, Atlanta, Augusta, the Carolinas, Alabama, Florida, all of these other areas that have black businesses thriving, there's no mistake that there also is a black chamber that exists. And so black business in Valdosta, there is a glass ceiling, because you have the Good Old Boy Network. There is a glass ceiling that you won't be told about opportunities because of the culture of Lowndes County and Valdosta, Georgia. So if we're afraid to get behind having a chamber that looks out for our businesses, then are we doing ourselves an injustice in that manner? Because there's only but so far you can go in a world that's really guarded by our counterparts, which is the same reason why we developed and got behind HBCUs, is because in some places we're not given a fair shot of education, so we send our kids to HBCUs. So, there are areas to where I think we can progress more, just because we're not actually pushing the envelope that we're entitled to push.
So is it safe to say that, without self-management, that's something we're gonna have to really, really put on as our own agenda, or something
I
that's
was
at
about
the
to
top
say
of our own
that.
agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something we really have to do, because I think a lot of us have a lot of potential. We are surviving people.
Yep.
We're extremely intelligent people. However, we have been strategically shackled in so many different directions, so many different areas, on so many different dimensions. And I think self management is probably going to be one of the major things that we need to get through. Self awareness, then our social awareness. That's definitely another part of the
Yep.
process.
Got
And
brother OG
yes,
chimed in. He did have a question saying we are. It was about 3 minutes ago, so I assume it was something that I said. Feel free, brother OG, to expound on what the specific question is that I may have one point that I made that has a question based on where you're coming from as far as we are, with a question mark. We are. So, and I'll be happy to explain anything that I said.
I thought that's what he was referring to.
I see. I say he's more so on. We are free. Yeah, that's the laughing point. You're right. To understand that we are free. You're right. Thank you for clarifying that, because you're right. Some of these areas that are in our community, you would think that we are not. We haven't gotten our independence, and a lot of it is because of the circumstances that we place within ourselves, because of the circumstances that we're born into. Some people are born into poverty. Some people are born into just ruts that the family just can't get out of. And I know we're trying, because I see it all day long through businesses and people doing these different creative ventures. And so I know we're trying, but it's just that we have to do a total mind shift, which is one of our last questions, is basically, are we in dire need of a mindset change? I think, if I have that right, is that how we said it, bro? Yeah, mindset shift, in 2022. And I think we are. What are your thoughts as we transition to that question?
I think so. I was just going to add on to that he was right. We did go from physical slavery to mental slavery. And I think that was, all due, with the word, the integration word, not understanding what that really meant. We thought it was just us mixing of culture and hue, but it was really us mixing into the psychological mind games that they play. And I think also, the idea of the concept of freedom was really left to the perspective of the person who supposedly had it. There were some people in the South that felt like, because they were able to sharecrop and they didn't have masks on their neck every second, was freedom. They could go a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of months without being harassed. There were others that were like, "Nah, bro, I'm going to the North where I can really be free." So I really think it kind of boiled down to the perspective of what freedom was. And you're right. There are a lot of people in the South that still hold on to that traditional, well, at least massa ain't on our neck type freedom. You know what I'm saying? We still get the nigga word. We still get to go back to Africa foolishness. We still get that in the South or in a lot of red states. But there are a lot of other places where you wouldn't find somebody from the other side murmuring a word like that, because they already know. You know what I'm saying? That we'll come get you with that, wherever you know what I'm saying? So that it just depends on where you are. I think kind of drives your concept of what freedom really looks like. But you're right, 13th and 14th Amendment did put us right back into bondage, and we didn't know it. Even a lot of things that we do with our governmental process, with your birthing of your baby, the Social Security card, all that other stuff, all was maritime law that was added into that we didn't have a clue what it meant. But now we're realizing that it was all organizational structure on being able to make sure that you were a commodity. So we understand that, but in the beginning we did not. I think the fact that now we become more aware of who we are, become more socially aware, recognizing and understanding that there are a lot of things that happen with the way that they're communicated with us or to us. understanding the cues that are put out a lot of the times that affect us emotionally, how we affect other people emotionally. I think we need to get right back to that. The spook that sat by the door, where as we talk about the mindset change, the shifting of that mind frame. The spook that sat by the door was actually the person who had shifted their mind to be able to navigate new environments and understand that there were certain things about the way he had to present himself to be in that room, not to get away from us, but to take the information, come back to feed us so that we could organize properly. That's a mindset shift because you already know there are a lot of us that once we get a little bit of bread, a little bit of notoriety, first thing we try and do is get out the hood, get from around all y'all jokers, and go rub shoulders with somebody else who really is trying to keep us where we just came from. So yes, we are in need of a huge mindset shift because as of right now, we are still stuck in a lot of that good times, a lot of that the Jeffersons type, you know, mind frame. We're still talking about the white man. We're still talking about this, that, and the third, instead of moving in such a way, learning the system, learning the legal games they play, and play the part. That's how a lot of those black men, a couple hundred years ago, that they learned the law. They knew how to go get property and have it written up in a certain way where you just couldn't come take it. They went and learned it because they understood that's the country that they live in. And regardless of how much we think we're citizens, until you get your paperwork right, come on, T.I., until you get your paperwork right, you still going to be a slave. You know what I'm saying? So I think that really needs to go back to us accepting the fact that we need a mindset shift. We need to get rid of a lot of the things that have entertained us for so long, a lot of this rap, a lot of this other stuff that we just keep dragging along from generation to generation that we knew was problematic, is problematic. There's a whole lot of stuff that we need to shift our mind frame when it comes to how we deal in business, how we buy properties, how we have children, how we operate, in politically. Yes, we all blacks are not Democrats, and we need to stop beating up those that are not. All blacks are not Christians. We need to stop beating up those that are not. We need to have a mindset shift to understand, like Dr. Claude Anderson said, color first, group economics. Shift our thinking. Instead of trying to be better than somebody that looks like us, let's do business with them, teach them the business so we can all grow together. That's how we gain influence. That's what the Chinese did. You don't ever see Chinese people picketing for nothing. Now they may have way back in the day, but if you think about it, we never see them begging for nothing. We never see them really pushing for a politician, none of that stuff, because they understand at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. It's how you do business. It's how your status is set up. And it's how you're able to set up a community where regardless of what's happening in the economy, or get run over by a tank, what's happening in the economy, and how can we benefit from it as a group. If we start doing that, we wouldn't be so emotional and so triggered by all these people coming on saying the N-word and black people should at this point, we shouldn't even allow that stuff to push us over the edge. We got white folks, Chinese folk, Hispanic folk, everybody call everybody nigga. So I don't know why we get so triggered by it now when a white person says it. You let everybody else say it. That's just me. That's just me. I know sometimes it pushes us, but again, I think it goes back to our lack of self-management. Stop allowing these little words, these little keywords to trigger you to then have an impulsive behavior, etc., etc. But I digress. But yes, we are in dire need of a mindset shift. But what say you, chat? What say you? Because let's see, I did see a couple comments. Shamaji said yes, as a whole we do need a mindset shift. And Brother Thomas said, and we are governed by a corporation. We are, but we actually that there is a way we can govern ourselves. That's what the Amish do. There is a way we can govern ourselves. That's what That's what the Italians do. That's what a lot of these smaller ethnic groups do. That's why they have mafias, and they're allowed to operate along with the government because they know how to govern themselves. The fact is, that's why there's no black mafia, because we don't know how to govern ourselves. We don't know how to operate as a group, as a culture, as an ethnicity. We're always at odds with ourselves and with other people. So there are a lot of things that we need to grab a hold to. But you already know us having a black mafia will be a problem. We already tried to do that a couple times, and you saw they did that because they understand when you have your own mafia, you can then govern yourselves, and then you can start controlling a lot of this, this community behavior we got, this shooting and these drive-bys and this drugs and all of that. You kind of tailor it because you have someone to kind of hover over that region or over that area to make sure that certain things don't happen. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that we need, but I mean, I digress, man. I just wanted to see if we had anything in the chat.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're getting live now. Folks are on. Shamanti was like, definitely, we have to learn to trust each other so we can do that. Absolutely. Calvin is on YouTube. I appreciate you, bro, going on YouTube. Most of our people, by the way, come from Facebook. So logging into YouTube is a different method, and so I appreciate that, Calvin Barron. But he said that's what we need, shouting that from the mountaintops there.
We do.
It's like, Thomas says, like growing up in Harlem, which Thomas is from there. Violence was not chaotic and reckless, although it may have looked that way from the outside. It was not. We've had conversations with OG before. A lot of his experiences, man to man circumstances, just basically, you got dealt with, but at the same time, it was, man to man type of engagement.
You had Nicky Barnes and all those guys that were big time mafia guys, who had the muscle, who could keep people from mugging old ladies, and they would find out who did it. You know what I'm saying? It's like these people understand. They know that although these Asian mafia and the Russian mafia, all of them are allowed to have mafias because they understand that keeps that allows them to have a control group. But when you have an area that has no big homies or all the big homies after each other neck, then at that particular point, you know what I'm saying? Now you got chaos at the top and at the bottom. And so they want it that way. But again, we need a mindset shift. We need to stop running with this no snitch rule. That's another thing that's killed our neighborhoods and killed our communities. Not willing to, to put these people who are out here putting our communities and our children in jeopardy. Not willing to put them on the chopping block, and hey, this is a decision you decide to make. You knew this was the consequences. These are the things exactly. Nicky Barnes' nephew Roger Barnes came to my rescue one day. It was just like that. That's what I'm saying. They had the muscle in the community. They controlled it, and we're gonna have to get back to that to some degree, setting some kind of standard to realizing that if you're gonna do something in our communities, you're gonna have to answer to somebody. And let it not be the police. That was another thing that really hurt us was the fact that we thought that we could rely on, the cops and the government and the FBI to really come in and to fight on our behalf when in fact they have not done that. They haven't done it from assassinations to murders to lynchings to restaurant counters. To the bus, we can go on and on to the things they did to us that almost seemingly went unpunished. And so, we had this fight against this trust with the police, but we felt like when we couldn't control them, the police would. Didn't realize that we weren't doing anything but inviting them into our communities to come fix what we were inadvertently telling them we can't fix our own people. So y'all come in and do it. So we'll call the police. We'll call the FBI. We'll call these folk. Not realizing we were worsening the problem. Trying to get rid of the Nicky Barnes and all those guys instead of having them around to help us maintain our communities was a problem. And now we see what it is. We got the no snitch rule. Everybody got to be in the gang. Everybody got to be a hitter. Everybody gang. Everybody got to represent their side and their crew, willing to go out and shoot the next black man, not realizing that there's another attack on the other side. Politicians, government, they're pushing it right along. They want us to do this. And as long as we stay in that arrested development, we're always going to be fighting against ourselves, always not going to support black business, always not going to support black people in leadership. We're always going to have the Messiah complex. We're always going to have these issues because we're unwilling to shift our mindset. I don't know any snitches, at least now that are alive. There are a lot of people that snitch. 6ix9ine got a huge get out of jail free card when he snitched on the folk that did him. That's probably one of the most recent ones. He's still walking around. It's just a different day. But hey, we definitely need a mindset shift for sure, because this is getting out of hand.
Yeah. Hey, shout out moment. Shout out to Tan for sharing tonight's stream on Facebook. We appreciate it. Again, anytime that you share, we're going to shout it out, because again, we have to have that share quality, because when you share, we are able to reach people that we can't touch. That's in your circle. So we appreciate it. Share, Tan. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I want to hear some. I want to hear some more from the chat, because I want to hear, is there anybody else that can give us an idea, like, you know, what are some of the things that we need? What are some of the things that happen that are about our mindset that need to be shifted?
One last funny comment that OG just said, because he's talking about the 70s and 80s in Harlem. He's like, basically, these dudes today win last.
I'd have to agree. It was a whole different situation, man. You think about biologically, the testosterone level in men is,
man, come on, don't even go there. Oh my goodness,
exponentially. Yeah. So a man back in the 70s, 80s is a totally different man in the 2020s.
God, that's another. That is a worthy show, but it's another show right there. That's another one, man. Shamonte said, "We lost the village mentality." It sounds simple, but if we learn to genuinely love and support one another, we'd be further along. Appreciate that, Shamonte, because you're right. That village mentality is important, and it's a part of our basic tribal unit.
What about this village mentality do you think keeps our reality in check, or kept our reality in check?
All right, different from today, because a couple of ways, right? So we talked about, well, what I expressed was beyond the classroom, you know, as far as, you know, discipline, beyond the classroom, beyond education. So when I hear the village mentality, the first thing we think about is discipline. You know, that whole village mentality when we grew up was, if you got in trouble at school, the neighborhood already knew by the time you got home. So
facts.
So you had to deal with it with your mom at work, but maybe big mama's at the house, or your babysitter's at the house, whatever. But someone already knew that you had gotten in trouble, and that was a disappointment for that family. So however it was dealt with, not going to get into how it was dealt with, but the point is, the concept was that you had to go through a line of people that challenged why you got in trouble, and you had to be accountable for answering that, or dealing with whatever the consequences were. So that term, village mentality, is how most of us have experienced that, and this generation is not experiencing that, perhaps on that level. The other way that the village mentality is important, think about it from a tribal perspective. I talked about, you know, the transcontinental passage, when basically we had stories that got us through, and all of a sudden now we couldn't even tell our stories in our native dialect, but those stories is what made us a tribal unit and made us proud of where we came from, who we were, and what I'm supposed to be, based on the stories that I've heard about my father, about my father's father, my mother, and these passage of rights we talked about several weeks ago. So that is an important village concept as well, because if we're growing up and we are without the storytelling and somebody else is telling our story for us, it gets a little scary now. And that's the reality we're on. That's those VR goggles that you saw in the video. We're living through somebody else's reality, thinking that we are entitled to walk that journey. That's not our journey. And we're losing the concept of who we are. So those are just two of the concepts. And I know you want to get in as well on that.
Man, when you use the virtual reality, that made me think about the fact that them calling us Negro, African American, Black, like our reality has been given to us virtually. You know, well, I wouldn't say interdimensionally, but I would say varying dimensions to the point where we don't even know. It's hard for us to even believe that we are indigenous to America. Just the fact to have been told, just the fact for a black person to be told that you're not black, but you're actually Moorish, or you're actually an indigenous Indian. You are, the real Indian. When you again, I got the book on my shelf, the Confessions of Columbus. The diary of Columbus, when he was writing, saying that the people were beautiful in physical stature. They were great farmers and horticultural, geniuses. They had this ability to interact with each other. They shared everything. They were peaceful people, and they were copper colored. So what I did was I went and got a penny and put it to my skin, and I couldn't see the difference. And so then I began to realize, oh, wait a minute, copper colored. He starts explaining their hair and how their hair stood up on their heads, how their hair did not fall down, but it rose, it went up. If you start listening to all the details that Columbus himself talked about, and then to look at a brother like me walking down the street and say, "Hey, bro, I need you to find out what Indian tribe your people was from."
Mm-hmm.
He'll look at you like you crazy, like, what? My people come from Africa. I'm from Africa. No, bro. No. You from here. There's even studies even talking about all the cities and all the certain places that are in America was actually the promised land.
Right.
They've already been talking about this. This is already studies that have been going out. Every city in Egypt and Africa is here on this soil. Every city. They were saying that the Mississippi was considered the Euphrates, how it ran from north to south, the flow and all that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that's out there. And this is why we have to get back to understanding that we're going to have to unlearn a lot of stuff that we know, because Brother Black was on point. We have been suffering from the effects of vertigo, of looking through these lenses, through this virtual reality that's not ours. You know what I'm saying? And we have fashioned our life to be everything else outside of who we are. Yet we affect every culture on this planet and get no benefit from it. That should speak a whole lot right there, to know that the most impactful, the most well-known, the most mimicked human being on this planet is the most subjugated and the most oppressed culture and ethnicity on this planet at the very same time. That should say a whole lot about where our mindset needs to be changed and shifted to something better and something grateful. But I'm sure we missed several comments along the way.
That's fine, but I will get them because I got them here. But I just wanted to give a quick shout out moment. We got to get some shout out moment to Calvin Berrien again for sharing tonight's stream on Facebook. Now, Calvin should get like a double shout out because he's on both platforms. He's on YouTube and he's on Facebook.
That's what I'm talking about.
Getting that content out there. So he
probably got two phones too, knowing him, Kevin Gates looking. You already know.
Right.
He probably got two phones.
One thing that Calvin talked about before is that village concept that I was describing as well. He said he couldn't get in trouble because most of the teachers and principals were That's a village for you.
Hey, but he brought up an amazing point.
Yeah.
Because nowadays, a lot of our principals and a lot of our leaders in education, they do not live in the neighborhoods and in the communities of the people, the children that they educate. So there is a disconnect there. You know what I'm saying? When you're driving a $100,000 car as a principal, you live nowhere near the people who you're serving. That's a disconnect. Yeah. You can say you're acting as a role model and showing them of the possibilities of what could happen if you apply yourself and all that stuff. You can have all of these things, but I think it's also important to if you can't live in those communities, to be very active in those
Yeah,
communities outside of those school hours. So
absolutely.
again, another great point, that Brother Calvin brings up. So appreciate that,
Uh,
brother.
OG said before, back to your discussion about education, this is why I can't stand the education system. It's one of our biggest problems, if not the biggest problems. He also added that integration killed us as well.
It did. It killed us.
Spot on,
It did.
spot on. It
It
goes one of the other things about the village concept as well that I was going to add before is that, or thought of before I forgot. But the village concept also means education. Education beyond the walls of the school is that whole education that Brother Bo just talked about, where we perhaps have lost the drive to even dig beyond the surface of what is just taught to us in schools. This you pretty much just have to have the mindset that school or the education system is a white lie to some levels and degrees. That's why I always like math. I mean, it's just ones and zeros. You can't go wrong there. But everything else is subjective to some degree because it's what's important in this case to Georgia Department of Education that they want all systems to learn, right? What they want all systems to learn.
Right.
So you're being programmed as a child as to what's most important to the Georgia system, basically. But it also, by default, leads you to believe what's most important. I mean, we all remember, I remember in elementary school learning Georgia history. And my wife, when she came down, she was like, y'all learned Georgia. We didn't learn Maryland history. You know what I'm saying? But again, think about the lost cause, Confederacy. They want you to learn Georgia history. And so the point is that while it's always good to learn about your state as well, but what Brother Bo just talked about, what about the native community that was here that our forefathers probably were a part of? And so that concept of knowing that Black America also was included in Native America, that's not a concept that was even told to us.
It's true. And I think, again, it was on purpose. The education system, we already know, was a more fleshed out version of church, which was a more fleshed out version to prepare people for a prison environment so that it wouldn't be a complete psychological shock to them because they were used to having somebody in, the principal is the warden, the correctional officer was the teacher. All this stuff is very interchangeable. Goes back to pastor being the leader, the deacons being, the parliamentarians. It's all interactive. It's all parallel. It's all the same thing. And we have to understand that, again, that goes back to us having that emotional intelligence to realizing, having that social awareness. This is what we were talking about. Being able to know that everything that the government has set up in a system is made to subjugate you or to oppress you in some way, form, or fashion. And now it's to the point it's white, black, red, or green. But we have to recognize. I don't think a lot of Black people recognize just how much behind the black ball, the eight ball, we really are. You know what I'm saying? I understand how much we are really under attack. But it does go back to the fact that we do need, those highlights or those certain things to really keep us focused, to realize that the systems that are in place are not for our ultimate benefit. They are not. Sorry, the financial industry isn't. The educational industry isn't. The legal system isn't. It's all set up to basically protect the interest of those that sit in high places. And so we're gonna have to learn the game. We've got to shift the mindset, send our children to school. I'm hoping, praying within the next year, 2 years, I'll be able to send my daughter to private school because I'm not even liking, how they're doing a lot of this stuff in the public schools. Now you want to arm teachers instead of creating an environment where they can't even get in.
Yeah.
Increase your security, increase your vetting process of people getting on campus. Do what you got to do if it's going to be a public school instead of always giving us your thoughts and your prayers. Heck with that.
You
You
just
know what I'm saying?
you just hit on something that was like so funny. As far as vetting the process of people getting on campus. All right. But before I get onto that, shout out moment. Again,
Uh-oh.
shout out moment. Thomas McIntyre OG, as otherwise known as, aka OG, just shared tonight's
Yeah,
stream
yeah.
on Facebook as well. So we appreciate that. We're gonna give everybody a shout out tonight that shared. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're gonna get that sound on in a minute. But yeah, man. So appreciate that. But yeah, going back to that, what you just said is that vetting process, gun control, the conversation need to happen. But even from a school perspective, you know, if I mean, I think you rolled up on Lowndes High before. I'm not picking at Lowndes, but I think any campus is this easy to get into school.
Yeah.
But when they have all this guard patrol station, when you meander through the entrance, all you got to say is, "I'm here to see somebody." I'm here to help out with the guidance counselor. So I mean, he'll wave you in, roll up the arm, the control arm for the car to go through, and you're on campus, bro. I mean, there has to be logical ways to where you can vet people, not only obviously in the background screening, but if we're talking about the safety of our kids, like you said, what sense does it make to arm teachers that should never be in a position of trying to teach, be answering to a curriculum challenge, and now they have to be patrol for their classroom versus you just actually putting the person that's out front with the right resources to keep people from coming onto campus freely, unchallenged.
Yeah. It's a lot, man, that we have that we have in our system. It's a yeah, brother Thomas. It's a lack of. It's just a lack of rules. It's a lack of the ability to of them. Putting the money where their mouth is. So much. They always give us all these promises about what they're going to do. They've been screaming about them. Coming down on gun violence since we were kids, bro. They ain't gonna do no more than what they've been doing because the NRA is such a powerful organization that does a lot when it comes to lobbying and providing those funds, for certain companies and certain political agendas to get passed. The NRA has been responsible for a lot of people, what I'm saying, winning elections and stuff like that. So they can cry all they want to, but they're not going to change much. That's not much they're going to do in America when it comes to that because of just the nature of our history, being able to protect ourselves and be armed, with weapons, etc. So I don't know, man, but it's all under. I think everything is under the microscope at this point. When it comes to being in this system, I just think we're going to have to make sure we make better choices about how we move. I wanted to bring up something before we got out of here. We were talking about, the mindset shift. I think one of the main things why we suffer from not having a shifted mindset. I think it comes with the fact that haven't been able to identify our purpose. Not only that, we don't have a vision for our families. We don't have a vision for our communities. We don't have a vision for the generation behind us. I don't think we've even defined or defied our own negativity. I think we keep rehashing these circles of violence and these circles of viciousness that doesn't allow us to expand into something more than what we've seen over the last 30 to 40 years. I'm so sick of going around a group of white people and them asking me, what's my favorite rapper? Or what do you think about Obama? Like, I'm so sick of that question because what it proves is the fact that, in the eyes of the masses, we're still the same people we've always been. We've always gravitated to that one or two, public black figures. Like I wish somebody would walk up to me and ask me what I think about Herschel Walker. I wish they would, because I would have a whole lot of things to say about old boy that has definitely done nothing but shown his lack of social awareness. He has no clue of how awkward he is to his own people. But that's a prime example of being socially unaware of your decision making and also the cues that you're receiving from the people around you. But I think that another thing that has hit us, and we can break this up before we get out of here. We got about 5 or 6 minutes, but also we haven't consistently generationally surrounded ourselves with positive minded people. I think that has been probably one of our biggest obstacles is generationally being able to detach ourselves from people who aren't there to help us or who aren't there to push us to greatness. I think a lot of times we're attracted to people who are negative, people who are kind of edgy, people who you know, kind of have their hands in all kind of different friends of what am I trying to say? Friend circles. You know, they got their they kind of are connected in a whole lot of different areas and arenas and this side of town and that side of town. Instead of getting connected to people who are pushing us to greatness overall, I think we're trying to get connected to people who can get us in certain rooms that many times we don't even need to be there anyway. You know what I'm saying? Everybody got a friend who deal dope. Everybody had a friend at one point in time who knew somebody who you get drugs from. Everybody had a friend you knew was scamming. Everybody had a friend you knew was stealing. Like everybody knew somebody who could do something. Instead of I should have a friend, I should have somebody in my phone right now who I call a friend who can help me with my taxes. I should be able to have somebody in my phone right now who can help me with financial advising. I should have someone in my phone who should help, who can directly help me if I have if I need therapy or social social tools or whatever. I should have people around me who can help build me instead of just having a circle of people who got a lot of money. I think that's been a lot of another bad aspiration that we've consistently perpetuated, in our society. They did it back in the 60s and 70s when they were brushing shoulders. We thought we were doing something when we got on David Letterman. Oh, I'm on the David Letterman show. I'm on the Tonight Show. Then it moved into I'm in this movie. Then it moved into I know Donald Trump. Then it moved. You know what I'm saying? It's like we always try to rub shoulders with people just to get clicks and likes instead of having people in our corner that's really going to keep us accountable. So I think that's another thing that has kind of exploited us to the point to prove that we need a mindset shift. Because there ain't nowhere in the world in 2022 you should be trying to buy a Benz to impress somebody else down the street just to let them know I can do it. Like we should be way over that by now. You know what I mean? Am I making sense? Like, am I off?
Nah, it looks like Calvin Barron is like me too, and I don't even listen to rap. But brother Mac, what do you think about Herschel Walker? he's, he's playing with me. Yeah.
Bro, I think the last time we should have seen Herschel Walker is when he retired from football. I
hear
mean,
you, man.
this is some foolishness. This is some absolute buffoonery. Again, this is our emotional intelligence being flaunted in front of us and being exploited to the point where this is who you're going to go to choose out of all of the intelligent individuals that we have, the quotient of the demographic, within our community that are Ivy League scholars, that that are upper echelon individuals that have done great business, have stellar, track records. You go choose Herschel Walker. Like, I mean, we don't see this happening. Like, we don't really see what they're trying to do. We don't see how they're giving us the worst example to represent us. Is crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, yeah, I would absolutely laugh in his face if he came to my community asking me to vote for him. I would not vote for what? He can't even hardly get a sentence out. He sounds like a boxer. He sounds like an old boxer that took a lot of beatings in his career. Now, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Tell us
no,
how you really feel, though.
yeah, yeah.
So he would not be the one that would get the welcome to come speak to your church as a politician.
I'm like, no, bro, we good. We good. We'll pray for you though. We ain't going that route. Okay, bro, Calvin said having money doesn't make you happy or make you feel good. Yeah, I'm down with that too, bro.
Yeah.
I'm down with that too. Yeah, I feel you on that. But yeah, man, we got a lot. I think we got a lot to work on. We just really wanted to throw that out there tonight. To really have the conversation because I think now we need to have some real heart to hearts within our own community. Stop focusing on the Karens and stop focusing on what the system is trying to do to the point where you're overwhelmed by it instead of preparing and arming yourselves. Likewise, brothers like Brother OG Thomas, guys that know the game, guys that know how to operate as a business and as an institution, know how to navigate properly, know how to do business in the land. I think that's what we're going to start. I think that's something we need to push our people to do, shift our mindset, building our own communities, building our own, focus on our own concerns. Stop taking up everybody else's banner. You know what I'm saying? And raise and fly your own. You know what I mean? Ride for your people, ride for your business. Like Brother Black was saying, sometimes if we do business with a black person who we feel like they're not up to par, don't just bash all black businesses. Go find somebody else black who's doing the same thing. Give them an opportunity as well. I mean, the same thing happens on the other side. All white businessmen are great businessmen. We already know all Chinese food ain't created equal. You know what I mean? So we're gonna have to do the same grace that we give other companies and other people. We have to give it to ourselves. Until they've proven to us that we're just a dollar to them. That's why I don't really do business with Indian people. Just the fact that they've proven over and over and over and over again, that you are a commodity to their business instead of a customer. You know what I mean? And they're willing to do whatever they can. So that's just been my experience. So I just no, I don't like dog. I don't like it. I don't like it. No, I don't. Like it's football, but I don't like it. I don't like what you're putting forward. But yeah, man. So I don't know, brother. You got anything you want to add to the conversation? I think we really, really.
Hey, we hit that one, man. We hit that ball right squarely. I like that conversation. I think the family, they like the typical. I appreciate all the sharing. We're gonna try to make sure we shout you out live as well when you're sharing. So I like the engagement tonight. Thank you, Shamonte, Calvin, Thomas, Sam Lucas, and also Cedric Montgomery for sure. And hopefully I didn't miss anybody. Tan, thank you also for sharing as well. I think that's about it, but just, let me know if I miss anybody. But other than that, I think we hit it all on the nail. It's a good conversation that we need to routinely have because it's not going to be solved in one night, but the conversation needs to spark somebody's listening ear that may hear it during the season. The other thing is I want to definitely, as I said before in the beginning, now that we have also the growing number of audience members, hey, hit us back next week, same time, same place as well, because next week we got a state champion coach online. And if anything changes, I'll let you know. But as far as the green light, we got Coach Robinson, head coach for the girls track team at Lowndes High School, that's going to be chatting with us next week. And bruh, this is going to be historic. And so we're going to be online with Coach Robinson next week. So all you routine family members, please give us the love and make sure that you're chiming in, because we want to make sure you're engaged, just like tonight, asking questions, giving shout outs, and just, you want to hear what he has to say as far as, how this past season transpired and some of the ups and the downs, the star power content that he had on the team. We will try to get into it all. And being that Brother Bold and I have a background at Lowndes High Track and Field, I know we're going to definitely sit right well with this conversation. I can't wait. It's going to be just like, when we had Shelton Felton, Coach Felton out there at Valdosta High on. We're going to basically just, all the formality might go out the window and just basically have the conversation. We're going to have some fun. So I'm looking forward to that. And I hope that the community, the family here is looking forward to it as well. But that's what I want to definitely end with, bro.
Well, I appreciate the conversation, bro. I think we've had a great one. Brother Calvin, I'm not gonna shame you. I know, I understand. A lot of us have made a lot of mistakes. I think we're seeing that a lot of things that Brother Donald Trump predicted are coming true. The gas, the food, the logistics, everything he said would happen if Brother Biden was elected, happened. And so I wouldn't even blame you, brother. I listen. I'm not gonna do that to you. We had a lot of black people that voted for a lot of folk back in the day that did worse. We a lot of times we like to tout Bill Clinton. He was the first black president, but he was the main one that put a lot of us in jail. A lot, went to that. I had a lot of those rulings that I think it was a three strike rule or something like that he ended up implementing. Calling us predators and all that kind of stuff. So I'm with you, brother. Do what you got to do. Most businessmen have been following Trump because of a lot of the things that he provided for businesses. So yeah, 1994 crime bill. So yeah, man, there's a lot. Do what you got to do, my brother. Don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid. That's what we do here. Let everybody have their opinion, and what I'm saying, we ain't trying to change your opinion. We're just trying to change, the way you look at it, and just see that there are other perspectives out there outside of your own. But man, I thank y'all so much for your time tonight. We really appreciate the conversation. Please don't stop the conversation here. Take this conversation, take these questions, have conversations over dinner, over the weekend. A lot of family reunions are coming up. Sit down with some of the family, ask some of these questions, get some information, find out some family history, figure out how the ways you could change some of your emotional intelligence so we can come out of this year much better than we entered. So we appreciate y'all tonight. Thank you so much. If you haven't, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you're always setting a reminder to be here with us every Tuesday night for our Black and the Bold show. And we appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all log in. I got to get out of here. I got to give you my Easter speech before we leave. As always, my motivational moments, we're going to talk about the power of choice. We've been talking about so much self-awareness, emotional intelligence, changing your mindset. All of that is really rooted in understanding that choices do matter. Listen, we all make choices, in our lives every day, both knowingly, sometimes unknowingly, from simple decisions like what we eat for dinner, what we wear to work, to the heavier ones about, who to be friends with or whether to change jobs. There's a truth at the end of the day that we must all embrace. And that truth is everyone has the power of choice. We got to understand it's a critical part of our self-development. And each and every one of the choices that we make is really what's going to help shape our experiences and bring us to where it is that we are in life. One of the great things I found out about having the power to choose is that if you don't like the places that you are in right now, you can change it. You're in the driver's seat. There's no one else driving your destiny but you. And you can actively and intentionally pursue different options for yourself, but it's all a part of your decision making on how to create happiness the way you see it. I gotta get out of here, but I gotta leave y'all. I found this particular poem, and I wanted to share it with y'all. It's called "I Choose." It says, "I choose to live by choice and not by chance. I choose to be motivated, not manipulated. I choose to be useful and not used. I choose to make changes, not excuses. I choose to excel and not compete. I choose to have self-esteem, not self-pity. I choose to listen to my inner voice, not to the random opinions of others. Main reason is because I choose, and I choose to be me." I want to let y'all know that you don't have to be like everybody else to be the greatest version of yourself. But remember, it all starts with the power of choice. We love y'all. Thank you for your support. We'll see y'all here next Tuesday. Till then, peace, love, and light. We out.